Canada and Poland just activated a $23 billion strategic corridor that almost nobody in North America is talking about. On paper, it looks like a mixture of defense cooperation, agricultural trade, and energy development. But beneath the surface, it is something far larger. It is the moment when Canada quietly steps into the center of Europe's new security and food architecture, and Poland becomes the fastest-growing strategic anchor for Canadian influence on the continent. This is not a symbolic partnership. It is a structural realignment that will reshape Europe's defenses, stabilize its food supply, and deepen Canadian power inside NATO's new Eastern Front. Welcome to Geo Capitalist. Today we analyze Canada and Poland's $23 billion defense and agriculture deal. We will examine why Poland chose Canada right now, and most importantly, what this means for the future balance of power in Europe. And if you appreciate this kind of clear, data-driven geopolitical analysis, make sure to subscribe. It helps this channel grow and lets you stay on top of every move Canada is making on the global stage. Poland today is not simply another EU member state. It is rapidly becoming Europe's frontline military power, the strategic hinge between Western Europe and the instability of the East. After the shocks of 2022, Warsaw realized its long-term security could not depend on slow diplomatic maneuvering from major European capitals. It needed reliable partners with real industrial depth, stable democratic systems, and the ability to deliver both defensive capabilities and economic stability under pressure. Canada fits that profile better than many realize. Ottawa brings agricultural capacity, energy expertise, and a long-standing NATO commitment that has placed Canadian forces in Eastern Europe for years. While other partners debate, Canada provides predictability. For Poland, this matters. It needs partners who can deliver food security, military cooperation, clean energy, and a stable supply chain environment. Canada is one of the few nations that can provide all of these simultaneously, and Poland recognized this at the exact moment when Western Europe's traditional defense powers were struggling to adapt. But this raises a deeper question. When a frontline state is forced to rethink its entire security and economic structure, who can it trust to deliver under pressure, not just once, but consistently over a decade? And if Canada is stepping into that role now, what does it reveal about the changing balance of reliability within the Western alliance? As Poland looks outward for long-term stability, is Canada becoming the quiet anchor that Europe didn't realize it needed until the continent was tested? These questions sit at the heart of why Poland sought out Canada, and they frame everything that follows in this new transatlantic corridor. Let us now examine the strategic behind the $23 billion corridor. The $23 billion figure is not a single transaction. It represents a multi-year corridor of defense procurement, energy cooperation, agricultural flows, aviation partnerships, and high-tech industrial activity projected across the rest of this decade. The foundation comes from the new Canada-Poland strategic partnership announced in late 2025, which explicitly covers defense, trade, energy, nuclear cooperation, cybersecurity, and advanced technologies. This means Canadian defense manufacturers gain privileged access to the fastest-growing military market in Europe. Canadian agri-food exporters gain long-term buyers in a country under grain market pressure, and Canadian energy companies gain a central role in Poland's shift toward nuclear and clean power. When you combine growing bilateral trade, already more than $4.6 billion annually, with Poland's soaring defense budget and the realignment of its agricultural supply needs, the long-term value of this corridor easily climbs into the tens of billions. For Canada, that represents one of the most strategically valuable European relationships of the decade. All right, let's turn to Poland's defense transformation and Canada's expanding role. Poland is rapidly becoming Europe's most heavily armed and most strategically serious nation. Its defense spending is approaching 5% of GDP, the highest of any NATO member, and Warsaw is pouring billions into tanks, air defense systems, drones, and next-generation military technology. For a country on NATO's front line, This is not optional. It is survival policy, and Canada is positioning itself inside this transformation. Ottawa has already committed forces to Poland for training and NATO operations, but the new partnership goes further. It opens the door for joint defense projects, Canadian participation in Poland's vast rearmament programs, and closer integration between Canadian aerospace firms and Europe's expanding military procurement cycle. This matters because Europe is entering a decade of rearmament. And while Washington remains focused on the Pacific, Canada now has an opportunity to shape Europe's defense ecosystem in a way that strengthens NATO unity while elevating Canada's influence. Poland sees Canada as a stabilizing partner who can bring industrial capability without political volatility. That is a powerful combination in today's Europe. All right, the next focus is Canada's energy leverage, nuclear power, clean tech, and strategic infrastructure. What many people may not realize is that energy lies at the core of this new corridor. Poland is undergoing one of Europe's most ambitious energy transitions, moving away from coal and building its first major nuclear power station. The technology chosen for that project comes from Westinghouse Electric, a company owned by Canadian investors. This places Canada directly inside Poland's energy security strategy. Beyond large-scale nuclear, Poland is exploring a significant deployment of small modular reactors, a technology where Canada is one of the world's front-runners. These reactors will power industrial zones, data centers, and even military facilities. If Poland expands its SMR program, and current plans suggest it will, Canadian expertise becomes indispensable. Clean energy cooperation expands the corridor even further. Critical minerals, hydrogen collaboration, and advanced grid systems all open doors for Canadian industry. For Europe, having a stable North American supplier of advanced energy technology is invaluable. For Canada, it is a strategic foothold in the continent's next-generation infrastructure. Let's turn to the agricultural connection and explore the big question. Why does Poland rely on Canada's food? Agriculture is where this story gains its long-term economic weight. Poland has faced grain market stress because of domestic tensions over cheap Ukrainian imports and wider European price volatility. Warsaw needs stable, predictable food supplies that are not tied to the political sensitivities of Eastern Europe. Canada, meanwhile, is one of the world's agricultural giants, a top exporter of wheat, canola, beef, and pulses. It is also shifting its export strategy after tariff disputes with China and the United States, creating a growing need to diversify into stable European markets. Under CETA, Canada already exports billions of dollars in agri-food products to the EU. What the new partnership does is carve out a deeper, long-term corridor specifically with Poland, giving Warsaw stable access to Canadian wheat and agri-foods, while giving Canadian farmers a politically safe entry point into Eastern Europe's growing food markets. Over a decade, this agricultural link alone represents billions, and combined with defense and energy, it forms the backbone of the $23 billion projection. Another key question is, why Poland turn to Canada rather than depending entirely on the US or Germany? Poland today is cautious. It relies heavily on the United States for military support, but it has seen Washington's political cycles become increasingly unpredictable. Germany is a major economic power, but its defense transformation has been slow. France brings diplomacy, but not always alignment with Poland's strategic instincts. Canada, however, offers a balance that Poland values deeply: a strong NATO commitment, stable politics, advanced industrial capacity, and a reliable agricultural base. Canada can deliver without the heavy geopolitical strings that sometimes accompany US or French contracts. And unlike Germany, Canada already has a decade of operational experience supporting Eastern European security. Poland sees Canada not as a substitute for its other allies, but as the partner that brings stability, food security, energy expertise, and quiet reliability. Now let's talk about how this shifts Canada's role inside Europe. This deal elevates Canada's European presence in a way that previous agreements never could. For decades, Canada has been viewed as a supportive NATO member on the sidelines of Europe's internal dynamics. Now it becomes a central player in Europe's defense build-out, its energy transition, and its long-term food security. Canada gains privileged access to Europe's largest defense modernization program, expands its agricultural footprint inside the EU, and becomes a key contributor to Poland's national energy strategy. In geopolitical terms, this places Canada inside the heart of Eastern Europe's strategic future. It strengthens Canada's image as a reliable global partner, increases its influence inside NATO decision-making, and positions Canadian companies, from defense to agri-food to energy, at the forefront of Europe's multi-billion-dollar transformation. In a world where alliances are becoming more transactional, Canada is recognized as the partner that brings reliability, depth, and long-term value. What this means for the next decade. Over the next 10 years, the Canada-Poland corridor will become one of the most strategically important transatlantic relationships. Poland secures food, energy, and industrial strength from a stable partner outside Europe's political fluctuations. Canada gains direct access to Europe's fastest-growing defense economy and one of the continent's most strategically positioned markets. The $23 billion projection is only the beginning. As Poland expands its nuclear fleet, modernizes its military, and builds new economic infrastructure, Canada will have a role at every step. And as Canada seeks to diversify away from over-reliance on U.S. trade channels, this corridor gives Ottawa a secure European anchor. Together, the two nations are building a model for what modern alliances look like: practical, stable, economically deep, and strategically aligned. Not loud, not flashy, but quietly transformative. The deeper question is how this partnership will evolve once Europe's rearmament cycle matures. Will Poland rely even more heavily on Canadian reactors and modular technologies as it transitions away from coal? Will Canadian wheat and agri-food become permanent components of Poland's food security planning, especially as climate pressures reshape European agriculture? And as NATO shifts more resources toward its eastern flank, will Canadian defense firms gain long-term industrial footprints inside Central Europe? These aren't hypothetical scenarios. They are logical outcomes of the direction both countries are already moving. The corridor's strength will depend on consistency, predictable policy, and the ability of both sides to maintain long-term strategic discipline, qualities that Canada and Poland have demonstrated more reliably than many of their larger partners. And that's all for today's episode. If you found value in today's analysis of Canada and Poland's $23 billion defense and agriculture deal, I highly recommend watching my next video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And feel free to leave your comment below, especially if this video made you see this partnership differently. Your support truly means more than you know. Until next time, stay informed, stay curious, and keep watching the world with a strategic eye. This is Geo Capitalist. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.